So I don't know what that was. Uh, we might use it as an intro song. I, I don't know.
It might need editing down a little bit.
A little bit. Whoever wrote that song, I got it for free off the internet, so it's the best choice I could get there. I don't know. We'll see. This is our first episode. We'll see how it goes. We might change that up in the future. Uh, I, yeah, probably. I don't know. What did you think about that song?
I dig the '80s like hair metal type intro with all that synth. Um, and I dig the. I really liked how right at the end it like started slowing the beat down, and then the beat got like
You know, it
asymmetrical. That was pretty cool.
just went really weird there at the end. But you know what? Hey, I'm Jack,
And I'm Mike.
and welcome to Bermuda Boys. This is our new show.
Premiere episode.
Premiere episode, yes. Can't get any more fresh than this. Mike and I, we love to get fresh with each other, so this is going to be
Hmm.
great.
You know it.
We'll see how it goes. You know, we're both at a very interesting point in our lives, I think, with the podcast world. We've honed ourselves in a different podcast, and here we are now doing this one.
Owned ourselves. I like that.
Yes, very like a brake hone. It was just kind of took off the rough edges and made it smooth, real smooth. I don't know how smooth we are, but we're gonna try. I myself have quit drinking, which has made podcasting very easy for me. And not drinking makes it a little bit more difficult, I guess, because then I get all the nervousness and all the odd feelings of anxiety coming up.
Mm.
I don't know about you, Mike.
I've been not drinking as well. I was counting it up. Shoot, Friday. I was counting it up. It's been like over a month, like
Well, that's good.
almost 40 days. No booze, no beer.
That is way better than me. I'm going on. Shit, I don't even know what I'm going on, but it's nowhere near 40 days. I can tell you that much. I've made some hiccups here and there, but I've pretty much stuck with the fact that I'm done with drinking. So other shows that we've done in the past obviously aren't going to be a thing anymore because of the fact that well, one of them in particular was very drink heavy.
Hmm.
So yeah, not
Mm.
really going to be a possibility anymore to really do that one. But we're not here for that. We're not here to talk about those other shows, and we're not here to talk about our weird ass problems that we got going on. We're here to talk about Bermuda Boys shit. Stuff that
That's
us Bermuda Boys.
weird ass problems that weird ass people somewhere else in the world have.
Yeah, yeah. This podcast is going to be a very interesting one, I think, and I'm actually really looking forward to doing it because we're going to cover a wide variety of topics. Pretty much anything strange, anything that's just out of the ordinary, anomalous, any type of oddity that goes on in our known universe.
Hmm.
And there's a whole shit ton of that. And it's not necessarily going to be paranormal things. I'm sure there's going to be some true crime stuff. It's going to be like a grab bag for everybody. If you like odd things, you're going to like this. And
Hmm.
we're going to start with one of the premier, well-known, oddest things in the world.
Mm.
And it just so happens to be kind of shaped like a triangle. Not
Did you
quite a.
triangulate this from a large list of oddities?
No, it's kind of where the name of the show comes from.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, a
oh.
little bit. Yeah,
So
it's
something wrong with boys? We couldn't do girls, just boys?
Well, uh, well, I can't do girls. They're out of my league. But boys are something that I can get.
Oh,
I'm
that's
not
right.
going
You're
down. I'm not
Catholic.
going down this road. uh, yeah, no, we can't use the boys. That's a show on Amazon.
Oh,
So
okay.
so we can't use that one. So I had to put Bermuda in front of it.
Okay.
We're not just the boys,
Are we
even
the
though
Bermuda Boys or are we just Bermuda Boys? Like, might there be other Bermuda Boys out there?
way to put me
Or
on the
are
spot, Mike. I don't know.
or are we the
Uh,
only ones?
I looked it up beforehand. There was nobody out there that even remotely close to this name. So
Well, no, that's not
I
what I'm
think that I
asking.
think
Like,
that'll work.
do we put the qualifier the article, the Bermuda
The
Boys, or is it just
Bermuda
Bermuda
boys.
Boys?
I never thought about this, Mike. Thanks for bringing this up.
Hey, that's what I'm
Uh,
here for.
Now that I am thinking about it, I think I did name the Instagram page the Bermuda Boys Podcast. So, so I
Okay.
guess that we could say the in the front of it, but we're just the Bermuda Boys. We
Cool.
are hanging out in this tropical, warm place in our minds,
Hmm.
and we're gonna think about some freaky,
And
weird shit.
now, listeners, if you have a tropical warm place in your mind, please go there
Yeah, go there instead of here.
instead of listening to us.
It's going to be a good show, I think. And,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
the possibilities are endless of what we can talk about.
Hmm.
We just have to find them and bring them
Hmm.
to
Collate
you, Mike,
them,
just
put
to
them
you.
together to me, directly to me.
Yeah, just
See,
to
I
you.
digest them. I'm like one of those birds, I digest it and then I just regurgitate it for all of you. So it's
Uh,
bite size.
to your young.
Yeah, I just puke it up right into right
Delicious.
into a microphone and then that microphone dumps it right into the ears.
All right. So Mike is gonna vomit in your ears, and I'm gonna shit all over them. So I think we've got this going. We've got something outlined here. I think we've
Boy,
got a
if you're
shot.
not excited for this show coming up, I don't know what'll get you excited.
Yeah. Fuck. So now that we've already gained our explicit label on every single place that we need to have it, which is fine. The things we're going to talk about in the future, I can only imagine. The things that we wanted to talk about on other shows, yeah, we kind of couldn't. So now we get the chance. We get the chance to kind of bring this out to, well, I don't know. People are probably going to hate us in the future, but whatever.
Hmm.
In this PC world that we have, but hey, you got to keep it real. But as I was saying before, we're going to talk about the Bermuda Triangle. Everybody knows about the Bermuda Triangle, so we're going to start with something very, very easy for us and for you guys out there to listen to. So,
Now, where is the Bermuda Triangle, Jack?
I was going to get to that,
Oh, okay. I'm
but
sorry.
I want to know what you know about it first. Like,
What I know about it?
yeah,
Well, um, that depends what you want to know. I know that there's a lot of stories of ghost ships, so ships that are completely empty, but everything's still functional.
I've seen
Uh,
that movie.
yeah, there's um, I don't know if you've heard of St. Elmo's fire, like the
Yeah,
um, fires
yeah,
that
or
show
like
up on floating in the sky ahead of ships.
off the wings of airplanes. Oh wait, no, that's Foo Fighters.
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh no, yeah, that
uh,
was Foo Fighters, but
but yeah,
I
St.
suppose it
Elmo's
would
Fire. Yeah.
be seen on airplanes too. It's the ship captains see it up in the air. So,
Oh,
let's
it's
see.
because they're not looking down.
There's what kind of stuff? I mean, obviously, so it's the essentially the Caribbean Sea. It's like um, from the island of Bermuda to like the Florida Keys out to what's the third point on the triangle? I think it's the Bahamas or something. So it's like a triangle that it covers the ocean down there south and east of Florida in that area. And
Yeah.
they uh you got, of course, like a lot of tourism and fishing boats and stuff like that in there too. So it'd be interesting if we could find some regular Joe who just lives down there and works on a fishing boat every year. Be like, hey, you seen anything wacky there?
Yeah.
Uh,
We could find somebody like that, I'm sure.
I guess there
But
was an island back in the 1500s called the Isle of Devils that's no that's what's it called? What's the word I'm looking for here? Um, it's reported to be in that area, basically. Uh,
reported to be.
yeah.
Well, I mean, it either is or it isn't. Like,
Well, I mean, it depends if you can trust these old 1500s maps. Like,
well,
a guy goes like, "Oh yeah, my whole ship and crew was lost at sea, but here I am." Like, how do we know he's just a drunk freaking pirate from the 1500s? Was he telling
yeah.
the truth?
What do we do with that drunken sailor?
I know.
Uh, well, we'll hang him with the rest of them.
Yeah.
You you got about the same idea of the Bermuda Triangle that I do. Uh, as a kid, I knew a lot more about it than I do now. Like I was
Hmm.
always fascinated by the Bermuda Triangle when I was younger,
Hmm.
and used to read everything that I could get my hands on about it. But as I grew older, I just kind of, it's just one of those things, It's like
Hmm.
you get desensitized to it over time. You hear so much about it, and like they make so many movies and TV shows and
Well, I'll tell you what it is.
podcasts
When
about it, and
Yeah, I had podcasts. When I was a kid, it was like nobody I knew about the Bermuda Triangle. So, like,
what?
I came across it and I was like, whoa, this is super cool. And I read everything about it and I was like, dude. And I would talk to my friends and I'd talk to, family and stuff like that. And they, oh, yeah, yeah. And nobody really knew much about it. So it was like one of those niche things, like real, like I was the one who knew about this,
You
And
had your thing on the
I,
playground.
exactly. I had my thing. Then as I got older, as my friends got older, it's just the weird and the wacky became, well, the stuff like Bermuda Triangle just became mainstream. Everybody had heard of it. Everybody knew about it. Everybody had their opinion on it. And I was
Uh,
like, oh, nobody's going like, hey, tell me more about this triangle, Mike, you know? So I just kind of, I don't know, same thing. I just kind of like faded out
uh,
of my interest in it.
so you were cool for a short amount of time, knowing about
Very
this
short
Bermuda
amount of time.
Triangle, and then everybody else found out about it, and then you just lost the one thing that you had.
Oh,
Okay,
yep, yep.
I get that, and it affects you still today, and leads to your crippling drug addictions. I'm sure, because that's what it did to me as well. I mean,
Mm,
that's why I was an alcoholic for so many years. People just didn't want to hear me talk about the Bermuda Triangle anymore. But you know what?
mm.
I'm back. I'm doing it again, and
All right.
so is Mike, and we're gonna do this. We know a lot of shit about this thing. At least we used to. But in the sense that I usually do, I did some research, but not a whole lot, because I figured I knew more about it than anybody else on the internet, and I was wrong. But as Mike asked earlier, where is it? Where is the Bermuda Triangle? And it touches Bermuda, that's for sure. But it also stretches down to, yeah, just about out to the Florida Keys there, like you said before, and out to Puerto Rico. So it makes kind of a not necessarily a very good shaped triangle, but it makes a triangle nonetheless. So it's kind of, it's not scalene, I guess is the word I'm looking for.
Mm,
Is that the one I'm looking for? Scalene. What's the one that has all equal sides, or is that isosceles?
isosceles, I think.
I don't fucking know. I don't know these Greek terms.
Mm,
But yeah, so we know basic things about it. We know where it is. It's down
hmm.
there. It's at least by Bermuda. We know that much. And we know some things about it. But do we really know what happens there? And that's what we're here to figure out. What does happen there?
Hmm.
And so there's a whole bunch of shit that goes on there. It was like, but the biggest one that most people seem to focus on is the strange disappearance of like ships and planes. I don't think there's ever been a helicopter or a blimp or anything that's gone missing there. It
Blimp.
just seems to be ships and planes. There's been some pretty famous ones, like let's see,
Flight 19.
Flight 19, yeah,
Yeah.
a bunch of World War II era fighter planes, I guess, disappeared out there. They had, but that one can kind of be like chalked up to being just navigational error, and then they ran out of fuel,
Mm.
from what I've read about it. But the thing is, what's odd about it is that they've never found any wreckage of these planes. No, I mean, they just disappeared without a trace, like completely gone off the face of the earth. And yeah, it's kind of fishy. Like everything that happens out there, they're never able to really find a trace of. But there have been a few ghost ships and stuff that have just
Hmm.
kind of shown up with nobody on board.
Well, I want to also point out that if the Bermuda Triangle just swallows every ship that comes near it or every plane that goes near it, do flight paths of modern planes go around the Bermuda Triangle, or like
Absolutely not.
we just have so there's so planes flying over it all the time then?
Oh yeah, I'm
Okay.
sure. I
I
mean,
mean,
the
I
thing
was just also double checking my whether my memory is correct. Yeah, Christopher Columbus and his three famous caravels, which are not very big of ships, from Portugal, actually sailed through the Bermuda Triangle, and they made it all right and made it back.
yeah, a couple of times. Um,
Yeah.
so, and there's been like a whole ridiculous amount of ships that have gone through there and have
Hmm.
made it through just fine. So, what is it about these ships that don't?
Hmm.
And ships sink all the time. I mean, just look at the Great Lakes. I grew up in Michigan. Like, it's like the shipwreck capital of the world of
Hmm.
all the Great Lakes that just have ridiculous amounts of shipwrecks. But there's nothing mysterious about them. They're still finding shipwrecks like today that they've never even known about.
Damn.
But the thing is, with the Bermuda Triangle, they can't find any. Like the ships sink and they're never seen again. I
Hmm.
mean, shit, they found the Titanic, for Christ's sake. Now, granted, it was like 70 years later, but they still found it. And all right, it was more than that, wasn't it? It's like 80 years later. No, I think I was right. I don't know. It's like 70. When did it sink? Like 1912?
I don't know,
Yeah.
but it wasn't in the Bermuda Triangle, so why are we talking about it?
Yeah, that's true. That had nothing to do with that, but they found it. Hell, they found that submarine
Hmm.
that sank near it. So, like, they can't find these ships that sank in the Bermuda Triangle. It's, you know, of course, it's a very large swath of sea, and it's
Hmm.
known as the Sargasso Sea
Hmm.
out there. And a neat fact about the Sargasso Sea is that it is where all European and American eels go to procreate.
Huh.
So every single eel that lives in like North Africa, Europe, and Western Africa, South America, North America, all travel to the Sargasso Sea, which is just right smack in the middle of the Bermuda Triangle, to procreate.
Huh. That's
So
wild.
it is wild. I mean, that's a hell of a fucking migration.
Yeah.
And that makes me kind of wonder. It's like, somebody had a theory out there that maybe there's like a sea monster that's causing this. Maybe there's just one big giant eel out there.
Hmm.
Or it's just one big giant eel orgy.
Ah.
And you just, you drive your boat right through an eel orgy and it's going to fuck you up. I mean,
All the
you got,
bubbles. I've seen the
yeah,
movies. Just like.
just, just eels just roiling around in the water,
Uh.
just fucking everywhere. And they're going to, they're going to take your boat down. So
Uh-huh.
to me, that's the most plausible explanation. Is just a massive eel orgy. That's what I'm going with. That's what I'm sticking with. I like
Mm.
that theory,
Hmm.
but there is a story. I can't remember exactly what it was, but there was a story of a shipwreck that did happen in the Sargasso Sea that had some survivors, and they ended up on a lifeboat type thing
Mm-hmm.
where they were just stuck out there for days, and they ran out of water to drink. But they realized that where they were in the middle of the ocean was fresh water,
Hmm.
which is kind of odd. And they were in
That
the
is
middle of the
odd.
Sargasso Sea, but they were able to drink the water and survive.
Huh.
So, they said it wasn't salty at all. And I don't remember what that was. I probably should have looked that up instead of just bringing it up. But, hey, it's what it is.
Hmm.
But, it kind of does make you kind of think. I mean, eels are like from the rivers and stuff of Europe and North America and South America and whatnot are freshwater creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And they travel all the way to the Sargasso Sea to procreate. And that actually is a proven thing. That's
Mm-hmm.
what they do. All eels do that. And eels are known from the beginning of time of just being creatures that just spawn. They're not born. They were believed to not even have reproductive organs for the longest time in antiquity
Mm-hmm.
because they just appeared. They never found, nobody ever found
They're
a
like
baby eel.
spontaneous, what's it called? Like spontaneous generation or whatever.
Yeah.
Just like streams spawn eels. It just happens.
So eels were seen as like a mythical type creature because they were just, I don't know, like put there by the gods, essentially. Because nobody ever found a baby one. Because by the time they traveled from the Sargasso Sea to wherever they were going to live until they went back to procreate and make
Mm-hmm.
more babies before they spawned and then die, because, which is a fucking odd lifestyle if you ask me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
that'd be like me just growing up in Vegas, say. So, like, I grow up in Las Vegas until I'm about 15 years old. And then I move to New York City. And I live there until I'm about, I don't know, say 35. And then one day I decide I'm going to move back to Vegas and have a kid. And then I do. I move
Mm-hmm.
back to Vegas. I find another person from New York City in Vegas. We get it on. We have a kid. And then we die. And then the kid grows up in Vegas and then moves back to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
That's animals are fucking strange, man.
Just make that a family tradition that goes back
That'd be
into prehistory.
thousands of years.
Yeah.
So I mean, pre-educated cultures had strange theories about eels
Mm-hmm.
because they were hard to understand. They couldn't
Mm-hmm.
figure out where they were coming from. They just showed up. So yeah,
Well,
it's kind of
Jack,
odd.
you know what else was one of those playground Mike's so cool topics that I don't get to have anymore is Atlantis. And speaking of antiquity, it's if anyone that's listening is unfamiliar with Atlantis, I'll just do a real 3 second overview. Ancient civilization from far back in antiquity, yeah, sunk by the gods, doesn't exist anymore. A lot of technology lost and history lost when that happened,
Yeah,
and so people have been looking for Atlantis for probably since the first stories by Solon about
at
it.
least as long as I've been alive, they've been looking. Yeah,
Yeah. So and as we all know that Jack was born far back in antiquity. So
yeah,
um
all the way back in 1985.
so one of the places where some people think the Atlantis archipelago or island or whatever you want to call it sunk is in the Sargasso Sea actually,
Yeah,
due to some line in there uh, in uh, Timaeus, I believe is book, ancient Greek book that talks about Atlantis. After Atlantis sunk, it was turned into a mire in the sea. And considering the Sargasso Sea is named after this sargassum seaweed, which just makes this mass of like floating seaweed on the surface, it looks very similar to like a mire or a swamp. And
Yeah.
some people think that might be where the continent of Atlantis sunk.
You know, that is possible. I mean, if Atlantis ever did exist, I mean, that is one of the most plausible places for it to have existed at. Uh, I mean, there's places that put it in the Mediterranean,
Hmm.
and that to
Theros
me
Island.
makes more sense because the
Thera.
Mediterranean Sea really isn't that old, considering.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like the Strait of Gibraltar was holding back the Atlantic Ocean for a good amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just didn't anymore. It's kind of like how,
Well, it's
you
the
know,
same with Doggerland, the North Sea between Britain and Europe. Uh,
yeah.
that used to be back in the Paleolithic times, man. Stone Age man was running around hunting mammoths there.
I mean, yeah, back in the Ice Age, you had a whole lot of water locked up in ice, so there
Mm-hmm.
wasn't a whole lot going on in the oceans.
Mm-hmm.
So the ocean levels were considerably lower than what they are now. I mean, if you think
Well,
about the Great Lakes
also
themselves,
look at where,
they're only like 11,000 years old.
yeah. Also look at where people generally live. Almost universally, around the world, the greatest civilizations have been in river valleys, in floodplains, on the coast, in these low places. We don't generally build like massive civilizations like way up in the mountains. So
Yeah,
who
unless
knows?
you're the Incans,
I
but
guess, yeah, the Machu Picchu. But I mean, still, that's one among how many, and it's arguably a sacred site, not their city that they lived in. But the uh, the idea though being that like who knows what kind of innovation. I know it was back in the Ice Age and it was Stone Age and everything, but who knows what kind of innovations they could have had in these river valleys and floodplains that filled the Mediterranean, what's now the Mediterranean Sea, that's just completely underwater now.
yeah.
But bringing us back to the Bermuda Triangle,
Oh yeah, we are talking about that.
potentially a location for the lost continent of Atlantis.
Yeah, and people have kind of found things out there. I think like off of the Bahamas, which
The Bimini Road.
yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of. But I'm not exactly sure if that falls into the Bermuda Triangle or not. I'm not
It
sure.
is,
My
yeah.
geography kind of sucks, so I don't know if the Bahamas are in there or not.
It is in the Bermuda Triangle if I'm remembering right, but now I'm
I don't
actually
know. I'm
second
second guessing
guessing my
myself.
memory.
I have to look that one up.
Is Bimini in the Bermuda Triangle? Let's see what Google says. Yeah, it is Bimini Road
Okay.
off the island of Bimini in the Bahamas, which is in the triangle by some definitions.
Hmm.
Thank you, Google. The
So,
Bimini Road, for any listeners who don't know what it is, a long time ago there was a psychic called oh man, Edward Casey,
oh
Edgar
yeah,
Casey.
that dude. I'm sure he'll be a topic on here at some point in time
Yeah.
as well
So
because
he
he's
he had a
odd.
vision and channeled the Atlanteans, and the Atlanteans told him of a royal road that went from their continent to the mainland, and where to find it. And so, long story short, he found some divers and paid them or conned them, I can't remember, into diving down there, and they actually found a
Most likely
megalithic.
conned.
He actually found a megalithic structure, or it looks like it. It's giant stones laid in a perfectly straight line all the way out into the ocean off the island of Bimini.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's got that going on out there. So, I mean, the whole Atlantis theory isn't really far fetched if you think
Hmm.
about it. I mean, if Atlantis was going to exist, obviously it would exist in the Atlantic. I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, they
it's
named the
kind of,
ocean after it. It had to be there.
yeah. So they knew what was going on back then.
Hmm.
But another one of the theories that does occur around this area is UFOs, alien presence, and I guess just like they don't want people going around that area, so when a missing ship does come in, they just suck them off.
Oh, you might want to rephrase that.
No, I like the phrasing on that. They just suck them off and leave their ship, I guess, to sink and disappear.
Mm. Or sometimes just
Kind of makes me want to go there now.
sometimes it does. The ship doesn't sink and disappear. It just floats around with no crew, and then they find it somewhere else. Like, wait, what's going on here?
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, there was a movie that I'd seen. I don't know why I like this movie so much, but I'd seen it probably in the early thousands, called Ghost Ship, and it actually takes place in the Pacific, like off the coast of Alaska or something like that. But it's kind of the same thing. And like they just find this random ship that looks like it's in great condition, but it was from like the 1950s or something. And then they board it, and they all get killed off one by one. Not to spoil the movie, but it's just kind of It's
Horror movies.
watch it. Watch
Kinda.
it if you haven't watched it. It's a terrible good movie, or a good terrible movie. I don't know. It's one of those ones that's entertaining, but it's really dumb at the same time. So
Yeah.
if you haven't seen it,
I'll have to check it out.
I know you haven't seen it because
I have not seen it.
you've watched like 5 movies in your lifetime, and they're all Forrest Gump. Have you even seen Forrest Gump? Actually,
Actually, yeah, I've seen Forrest Gump. I watched
I've seen
that
it 5
in
times.
no, I watched that in 2020 during the shutdown. I had nothing to do, so I was catching up on some of the movies I'd never seen.
Wow,
Yeah,
wow, Mike,
yeah.
you made it. You made it that long in your life without seeing Forrest Gump.
I tell you, man, it's a wild experience going through life, having people reference something like "Run, Forrest, Run." I had heard that for all my life, not knowing what that's about. It thought it just meant like run really fast, man. uh, but yeah, it makes sense now.
I'm not a smart man, but I know what Forrest Gump is.
Things are all coming together. It's all connecting. Now I'm understanding my past.
Yeah, shit happens. So back to the whole UFO thing.
Yeah.
I digress off of the ghost ship shit, and you want to watch that, you go right ahead. If you don't want to, that's fine too. I don't blame you. Let's see. Well, I had a tab pulled up. Okay, here we go. Going back to the UFO thing, and I'm actually going to go back to something that you had mentioned earlier about Columbus sailing through there and doing fine. But turns out they didn't really do fine. During Columbus's first journey across the Atlantic, he reported many strange things within the Bermuda Triangle. He talked about stars that would just move around in the sky. It was hard to navigate because the stars that they were navigating off would be in one place 1 minute, and then they would move to another place. And it was just all over. And there was also a light that looked like a candle that would move up and down in the distance. And when they would try to, go towards that light, it would just vanish. And then it would reappear somewhere else. So they had that going on. And then they also saw things that were glowing under the water and then shoot out into the sky. So, Columbus might have been like the first person to see a USO, if you think about it. So,
That's really interesting. I did not know this. This is cool.
yeah, so it kind of lends credence to the whole alien theory. And a lot of people actually do think that there is some sort of underwater alien base there. Because there's a lot of people that don't believe that aliens come from outer space. They actually come from here on the planet.
Yeah, or
So-
or under the planet, under the water.
And there are people that actually connect the Atlantis theory with aliens also. As that
Ooh.
because Atlantis being the highly advanced civilization and culture that it was, they had the ability to have these craft that could, so when the waves come crashing in on Atlantis and drowned Atlantis, they were able to survive still with their technology under the water for
Hmm.
millennia, and they're still there. But they just don't want to interact with the rest of us human beings because we're inferior to them. So I don't know,
Or
it
they
kind of
have
makes
some
sense.
sort of Star Trek Prime directive, like don't interfere with their development. When they
Hell,
reach
for
our level of development, then we can make contact.
let them nuke themselves. We're underwater. We'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't know. That's kind of a good theory too. Aliens seems to be the most promising to me so far, but the eel orgies I'm still sticking with. I mean, if you drive your boat right into the middle of a massive eel orgy, I don't feel like you're gonna make it out alive. And if you
That's
do, you're gonna be viviolated for
oh
sure. Those
so
things,
violated.
they're long, they're cylindrical, they can fit into places.
Oh,
I'm not gonna talk about what those places are, but they can make it. I'm
right in
sure.
your ear hole. Like this
Right in the ear hole.
podcast.
Yeah,
We are the eel of podcasts.
we're gonna eel orgy in your ears. Uh, yeah, I don't know about that.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned USOs because I found a story by actually it's pretty well developed conspiracy theory by surrounding a astronaut or aerospace engineer named Gordon Cooper who used to work for NASA and he did a well, I'm gonna condense down my notes here. He took pictures from a capsule around that was orbiting around the Earth, and
Oh, okay.
the things that he observed in the Bermuda Triangle area of um, the planet was pretty strange. He saw stuff that looked like some form of secret military device. He
Oh,
could uh, um, he could see this huge thing uh,
like
yeah,
me.
basically like what you're describing, like a big base or something like that. And then he let's see, he mapped them. He marked them on the map, entrusted the map to a friend named Miklos,
Mm.
who began to kind of triangulate these marks on the map and found uh, that there was these structures under there that looked like crashed ships or maybe something was built there or something like that, but it was not Soviet military um, geomagnetic detecting radar something or whatever that the astronaut thought it was. It was something much older. It looked like it was like 15,000 years old or something like that.
Wow. Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, he could just judge that by looking at it. That's
Well,
amazing.
he looked at the coral. So the coral that was growing on, let me see if I can find this note
So wait,
here.
so he could see the coral from space. I'm good. All right, I'm
No, no,
confused.
no, no, no. So his buddy Miklos, who he bequeathed all of his maps to,
Oh,
went
okay.
and
All right.
studied it, and
All right.
he looked at. I'm looking
I
for
was
it
like, this
here.
this man has amazing eyesight.
Hmm.
It's like he can see
Okay,
coral from space.
geophysicists on Miklos's team estimated that the coral growing on the structures are around 5,000 years in age. So I was wrong. It wasn't
Oh, okay.
15,000, it's 5,000.
Well, still,
But
5,000 is pretty impressive.
I mean, 5,000 years ago is 3,000 years before Christ. So
Yeah, the only like major culture that was going on at that point in time was the Egyptians,
yeah,
and maybe some other Middle Eastern cultures, but like Europe wasn't even a thing yet. They were still just like Neanderthals up there. So yeah, that's that's pretty impressive.
hmm so that means it had to have been built and installed in that area sometime before the 5,000 years ago mark, because the coral is going to take some time to grow. I mean, look at how much they're complaining about the coral reefs are dying off Nowadays, like, okay, I shouldn't say they're complaining. Like, that does kind of suck because the main reason why it sucks so much is like coral takes like hundreds of years to grow. So you're
Yeah,
not,
it's one polyp at a time. Look at
yeah,
like a polyp just it grows on top of another dead polyp, and
I'll
it's just
grow on your polyp.
slowly. You would. You can if you want, but nobody else does. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, like I don't believe in the whole Atlantis theory on this one myself. It I don't know. I'm sticking with the eels. UFOs kind of more plausible, but then can also be tied to Atlantis. So I don't know about that one.
Oh, we should talk about, in case the listeners, the
Yeah,
listeners
those
are
fucking
hearing
listeners.
those listeners. Well, this is topical. It was a topical mistake, I should say, because there's a difference between a USO and a UFO. Unidentified flying object is UFO. Unidentified submerged object is USO.
Yeah, it's like me in the bathtub. Uh,
While
as
doing the
well.
leaping belly flop into the bathtub, you are a UFO. But
Yes.
once you land in the bathtub, you are a USO.
Yeah, and I've lost some weight, so I actually will leave some water in the tub now.
Oh,
Uh, I don't actually just splash it all out of there anymore. So I do become a USO.
hmm.
They have new terms for them now. A UFO is now known as a UAP,
What?
an unidentified aerial phenomena,
Huh.
and a USO, I believe, is I don't remember what that one is called, but
Hmm.
it's something stupid, and I don't like it. I like sticking with UFO and USO because that makes more sense.
Yeah.
Then you get shit like MUFON. They've named their organization after UFO, the Mutual, Unidentified Flying Object Network.
Hmm.
So, you change it to UAP, and then now they're just going to be MUEPN, and that's just not as cool of a name.
Weapon.
MUEPN. So I like UFO because it sounds cooler, and I'm going to stick with that. So when we talk about aliens and flying objects that are unidentified in the future, I'm going to stick with the term UFO. I don't like this PC UAP term that they have nowadays.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Fair
just
enough.
just
Fair enough.
just laying that out there. I don't know why I had to.
So I wasn't even aware that there was UAPs and PCs and all of that sort of thing. So I just full on
Yeah,
still
but
say UFO and USO.
you also weren't aware of Forrest Gump until 3 years ago. So
This is true.
you know, you're not really keeping up with the times, Mike, which is fine. You're probably better off. But there are some theories also out there about the Bermuda Triangle having some sort of wormhole attached to it. And
Ooh, I haven't heard this one.
so that the ships that do go missing there, just they get sucked into like a wormhole or a time slip. And like they just get sucked out to some random place in space or time, which to me, I've always been kind of like with the whole ancient astronaut theory. I've always been kind of very partial to my theory about that of being that there were ancient civilizations that reported seeing craft in the sky. And I'm thinking like if you're up there just flying along at 30,000 feet in your jetliner when you're flying across the country, and you're looking down at the ground and you don't really see nothing. It looks like Earth, but you don't know if you're up there and you just slip back like 3,000 years,
Hmm.
4,000 years for 5 minutes, and then slip back into present time. You don't know what goes on up there. There's some odd things that happen in the sky. There's some odd things that happen out in the oceans as well. So,
Hmm.
I mean, a wormhole or time slip theory is very plausible. And it makes me kind of wonder that if ancient cultures did see something in the sky, maybe they just saw an airplane from our present time slip back into their time for a short amount of time and then slip back.
Okay,
I
I've
mean,
got I have thoughts on that one, and you're going to hear them in real time because
Oh
I'd
boy.
never heard of this before, and I'm gonna verbally connect some dots in my own head here. Uh, that is a really interesting thing. I had never connected the ancient astronauts and the Bermuda Triangle before, but yes, there's actual evidence of a thing that happened, documented that happened in I want to say it was like Polynesian Islands, Melanesian Islands, maybe. They were these cargo cults. So what would happen is they would come across these local people that believed that their gods would fly over in airplanes and drop goods that looked like faraway military goods with parachutes attached to them, and they had a whole thing like they worshipped in their after their manner. Their traditional religion basically was based around these cargo drops from World War II or I don't know, Korean War
Oh
era
yeah.
planes.
Yeah, I'd heard
Okay,
about this as well.
so there
Yeah.
is evidence of um, people who haven't yet visited certain like metropolitan areas and known that like there's such a thing as mass manufacturing and industry and things like this that see this stuff dropped in for other reasons and go, oh, it needs to fit into our worldview. Our worldview is our local religion, so they
Yeah.
wrapped it in there. So yeah, hell yeah, dude! If someone's flying through the sky and all of a sudden hits old time like at 30,000 years ago, and there's just some Neanderthals down there. They're like, oh, oog, see fire in sky, get AK-47.
Oh man, can you imagine that?
Well, and then if you look at the,
Imagine how much history would have changed if they would have accidentally time slipped and dropped a bunch of rifles on like a like an ancient Mesopotamian culture, and then all of a sudden, yeah, it's like I don't know.
well, hell,
Or
check this out.
imagine like the
Hell,
Greek army
so
ended up with a bunch of assault rifles because we dropped them
you know
at the
the
wrong time.
you know the Indus Valley civilization with like Mahindra-Daro or Mahindra-Daro, whatever it's called. There's stories of that civilization in shoot, man, I think it's the Mahabharata, talking about them dropping like weapons with the power of 10,000 suns on their cities and all that sort of thing. Dude,
Yeah,
could have
and
totally
there
been
is
this sort of thing.
and there is
Um,
actual evidence of like a large radiation or nuclear event that did
mhm.
occur in
It
these
got
areas.
nuclear glass on the sands around it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, and then if you read the original book that Eric von Däniken wrote on the ancient astronauts, um, ancient was it called Ancient Astronauts or Ancient Aliens? No, the show is Ancient Aliens. The book was Ancient Astronauts. The book actually goes through and shows, hey, this looks like a 1960s astronaut suit. This looks like the emblem for the country, whether Soviet Union or American
yeah,
flag or whatever on the suit would go here. And they're things that look like specific things from his 1960s, 1970s, whenever he's writing this era that could have popped back through time slips and then been depicted in these motifs. So hey, I mean, could be like very, very ancient versions of
yeah.
cargo cults.
Well, it's like Egyptian hieroglyphics of what look like airplanes or helicopters
Mm,
have shown up on the insides of their, whatever tombs and whatnot that they have out there.
hmm
Or in ancient South American cultures and Central American cultures having depictions of what looked like astronauts and like the lunar modules when they crash back down onto the Earth. Those little
hmm
triangle shaped, cone shaped little things that parachuted out of the atmosphere
hmm
and landed in the oceans during the whole 1960s 1970s space race that we had going on.
Yeah, the little lunar capsule things. Yeah.
Yeah,
So then all we would need to do really is try to cross reference what specific things, like you said, like cargo, I mean, not cargo planes, airlines, passenger planes don't their flight paths don't go through there. So that would stand to reason why we don't see any sort of um, like mythological flight attendants or anything like that, because those kinds of things wouldn't have popped through the portal um,
Well, they
in
wouldn't be
the
able to
Bermuda
see them
Triangle.
anyway. I mean, it's just at 30,000 feet in the sky when you see an airplane. It's you can kind of vaguely make out what it is, and then the
Hmm.
contrail and everything behind it. It looks like a smoking thing going through the sky.
Hmm.
And it has wings like a bird, but it's so far away, and then you hear the roaring noise from it and everything as it flies over.
Hmm.
And
Shoot, it was
ancient
called
culture would
Chariots
have.
of the Gods. Eric von Daniken's book was Chariots of the Gods. I'm sorry, it
Uh,
just came to me.
you were close. I don't remember. I don't remember what you said it was. Well, like American astronauts or something. I don't know. But yeah, like the wormhole theory. I mean, that's always something I've been tossing around for a long time. And I think that is the most plausible explanation for like
Hmm.
ancient civilizations being able to make out shapes of airplanes and whatnot.
Hmm.
Because who knows what goes on in the sky or out on the sea when we're just out there. It's such a
Hmm.
vast expanse of nothing that we don't know if we're slipping in and out of time.
Hmm. Hmm.
And
And
you're
what?
traveling at a weird rate of speed that you shouldn't be traveling at, and
Yeah.
it's weird shit happens. We don't know. That's why we're here. That's
Yep.
why we're talking about this, because we don't
Yep.
know.
And how would you know if all you have is your experience to go off of? How would you
Yeah,
know?
I mean, I've flown on airplanes many times, and I've looked out the window, and I've thought about this. Like when I was flying over Arizona one time,
Hmm.
and Arizona is such just a vast expanse of just pretty much nothing for a good while there. And you're
Hmm.
flying over it and you look down, you don't see any roads, you don't see any towns, you don't see houses or anything like that, but you're high enough up that you wouldn't be able to make it out anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't have the eyesight of the one guy who was able to see the coral all the way from space. So, like, I was looking out the window and thinking about it, and it was just like, if I was to just slip back, if every single one of us on this plane right now just slipped back 5,000 years in time,
Hmm.
and we slip back there for say 5-10 minutes, we'd never know.
No, you
But the
wouldn't.
people on the ground would. All of a sudden,
Oh,
out of nowhere, there would be this thing
roaring
flying,
jetliner. Yeah.
yeah, flying through the sky at an incredible rate of speed at such a high altitude that it obviously was not a bird and it was very noisy.
And I mean, everything is way quieter back then. There's less light pollution, so you're going to see the blinking red and blue
Yeah,
lights.
they're going to
I
see
mean,
that shit. It's going to be
yeah.
noticeable to anybody on the ground who has never seen anything like that before.
Hmm.
And, that goes back to, for me in a personal experience, and most people my age, yeah, I'm sure you included, remember September 11th.
Hmm.
And the fact that at one point in time, there were no planes in the sky over the United States. And I remember this very vividly because it was odd. Because growing up, before September 11, I could always go outside and see a plane. I live near a international airport, so it was always very common to see planes in the sky.
Hmm.
But this one day there were none, and it's kind of the opposite of what these ancient cultures would experience because they didn't have planes, but then all of a sudden one day there would be one.
Hmm.
To me, it was the opposite. There was just one day that there weren't any, and I remember it being odd because since that day, it's never happened again.
Hmm.
There's always a plane in the sky. I can go outside at any time. I can go outside right now and I could see the blinking lights of an airplane, I'm sure.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
I yeah, I mean, if we could then call them kind of in effect, this would be like a premonition of the future of some Paleolithic, person just standing out there, like all of a sudden, whoa, a jetliner, wow, um, not knowing it's a jetliner, but you know. So then, could we say that some UFO phenomenon could be like premonitions of our own future?
I was just
Nice.
thinking that same thing.
Yeah.
Man, you're a genius. Yeah, I mean, like, if it was possible for them back then, who's to say that future forms of transportation aren't slipping back in time to our time now from,
hmm
say, 2,000 years in the future? If humans are even still around or whatever, I mean, who knows?
hmm
For all we know, at that point, 2,000 years in the future, 20,000 years, 50,000 years, maybe eels have evolved to be the ones that are, really smart. And
Hey, yeah.
so we're just seeing a bunch of eels flying around in the sky,
They're just trying to
flying
make
back
it to
to
their orgy, man. Don't want to be
flying
late
back
to
to the
that.
Sargasso Sea to just procreate and have a really good time and then die.
hmm
It sounds awesome, honestly. But no, I like that theory. I'm gonna I'm gonna stick with that one. It's future eels going back in time. So yeah. Now, we do have some possible natural explanations for what's going on in the Bermuda Triangle, and obviously we got to touch on the things that are going to debunk what is going on there. Now, the biggest one off the bat is the Bermuda Triangle does not have any more strange disappearances than anywhere else on the planet. It is actually lower than pretty much anywhere else on the planet. It's just
uh,
fabled
I'm gonna
to
fact
be.
check you there. Um, Not true. Not anywhere else on the planet. So there's more
Well, maybe
sunken
not
ships
anywhere
there
else.
than there are in, say, like Siberia or the Sahara.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, there's more airplanes in the ocean than there are submarines in the sky, Mike.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. I just wanted to point this out so that it doesn't.
but it does, kind of lend a certain type of credence to the fact that the Bermuda Triangle really isn't anywhere special. It doesn't really have any more shipwrecks or strange disappearances than anywhere else. Aside, anywhere on the ocean. All right, I guess I gotta pick that with you. Thanks. Uh,
So then the
but
question would be, does that really debunk it, or does that just prove that since the 1500s when it was first documented, it has just been growing until it has consumed the entirety of the world's oceans?
no, it's just statistically, it doesn't really impress me. I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay.
But for what does happen out there, there are some natural things. I mean, the Sargasso Sea is a convergence of multiple ocean currents that kind of rotate in a gyro pattern.
hmm
So that is also a thing that could happen out there, especially before modern GPS and things like that. You get caught in this revolving current,
hmm
and you don't realize, and you're trying to go off the stars, and the stars are moving around, you're going to get lost.
hmm
So had that going on. And then another reason why I think they haven't really found a whole lot of ships that do disappear out there is because the ocean depth of the Sargasso Sea can reach over 22,000 feet. I mean,
No way.
that's Mount McKinley height. So, uh,
I thought
yeah,
this, I thought,
it's pretty fucking
huh?
deep.
I thought the whole thing about this was like, oh, it's such a shallow sea and there's all these methane bubbles boiling out and it's sinking them. I didn't know it was that deep. Damn.
Yeah, there are
Okay.
points in the Sargasso Sea that can reach over 22,000 feet,
hmm
and that is impressively deep. I mean, if you think about where the Titanic is, that's just barely over half the distance of how deep the Sargasso Sea is. So we were able to find the Titanic,
hmm
but we're not going to really be
Now
able to
go
go
that
much
far
deeper than
again.
that
Yeah.
to find ships
Damn.
that do sink. And, but the odd thing about the ships that do sink and disappear is we don't find any debris from them. They're just gone, vanished. No bodies, no
Well, you
debris,
did say
nothing.
there's that revolving current, so it could just sweep it away somewhere else. Because there's
Yeah, or
that.
just constantly swirling it around.
Well, there's also that mysterious thing. So like the Spanish treasure fleet, you know how they would sail the Mexican silver or the Inca silver or whatever across to Spain again, they would wait until a certain time until the current was right, and they just float right across on the current. So there is a current from that kind of area, Florida, Georgia area, that
Yeah,
goes
the Gulf Stream
over
or
to
something like that.
Europe. So you got that, and then there's the stories that like uh, a young Christopher Columbus was visiting like somewhere in Britain, and he come across Ireland. Ireland. I don't want to. I don't want to not give the Irish their due. It was
Uh,
somewhere in Ireland, and he
Look
came
at it there.
across these this couple that were in like strange carved wooden boats that just washed up starving and thirsting to death, washed up on the shore of Ireland. And he's like, I wonder where these guys came from. So I
Hmm.
mean, could have been some sort of like whaling ships or whaling canoes or something from uh that area, like the Bahamas or something, floated across on this current. Maybe it's just been dumping the debris from these shipwrecks elsewhere, and so nobody's
Yeah,
suspected
and
that.
it could just float along and then sink somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know, like, and who knows? A ship takes a long time to sink to the bottom. I mean, 22,000 feet to the bottom of the Sargasso Sea.
Hmm.
That's an incredible amount. That's what, like 4 miles, 5 miles, 4 miles. Yeah, that it has to sink. And it's going through water. It's a viscous fluid. So,
Yeah.
and with air trapped in it and whatnot. So say it starts sinking in the Bermuda Triangle, it's going to sink for a long time. And
Hmm.
the currents could push it from the last known location as it's sinking to
A whole
God
different
knows
place.
where.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so they could be completely looking in a different spot. And we also know that that part of the Atlantic Ocean is not safe from storms. Hurricanes are very common going through that area, so that can also explain a lot of missing ships and whatnot.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, huge storms and
Hmm.
whatnot, and also rogue waves being one
Hmm.
of those, which is one of the theories of one of the things that took out the Edmund Fitzgerald up on Lake Superior, if you all remember that one. And I like bringing up the Great Lakes on this. I really do. Because
Yeah.
growing up in Michigan, I was always fascinated by the Great Lakes because of the amount of history and maritime history on the Great Lakes, and the amount of shipwrecks and everything, and how many are undocumented. I've actually found one myself that was undocumented, and I have part of the ship's bell with me, which I'm admitting to stealing, I guess.
Finder's fee.
But hell,
Finder's fee.
I was like 12 years old at the time, so you know what? Fucking process and
You were
prosecute me for that
you were
one. I'm sure
diving
there's
and
some sort of
stuff.
statute of limitations. So no, I found it on in shallow water, actually, in between two islands in northern Lake Michigan.
Huh.
So I was walking in between the islands because, and I'm going to name drop the islands here because why the fuck not? There's a North Manitou and a South Manitou island. And I had been camping on North Manitou with my family and some friends. And I had decided to hike around the island. And I got to the southernmost point of North Manitou Island, and you could see South Manitou Island maybe a half mile away. And I
Hmm.
was like, you know what, I'm going to go to that island because why not?
Hmm.
So I started walking out that way and everything, and I ended up stumbling across a wooden structure that was a boat at one point in time. And the water only really got to be about this neck level on me, which
Which
at
on a
that point in
12-year-old
time,
is about 3 feet.
yeah, to me as a 12-year-old, that would have been probably about 7.5 feet deep.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because I'm about 9 feet tall now. But so it's like I stumbled across this shipwreck in between these two islands, and so I dove down into the water and I found part of the broken ship's bell.
That's
And
awesome.
I
Was
just,
it brass or iron?
uh, I want to say it's brass, but it seems very kind
Cool.
of irony. So I don't really know. I haven't seen it. I have it somewhere, but I haven't really actually looked at it in my adult years,
Hmm.
if that makes sense. But I do still have it, and it's very heavy. So that's one thing that makes me think brass, because brass is a
Hmm.
very heavy metal. Not very not very solid, but it's just heavy and dense in general.
Hmm.
So I'm thinking brass, and it's also got the discoloration that goes on with brass and whatnot. So
Hmm.
I'm thinking it's brass, if I remember correctly. I don't know, but either
Hmm.
way, yeah, never made it to the other side. Never made it to the South Manitou side because I found this cool part of a ship's bell, and I was just like, oh, so excited. I went back
Yeah,
and I took it.
that's awesome.
But looking back, and I've looked up shipwrecks in that area, and I can't find any evidence of any whatsoever. So there are many, many shipwrecks out on Lake Michigan and Lake Superior, Lake Huron, Erie, and nobody cares about Ontario because that's not a Great Lake. But there's so many shipwrecks that have occurred just in these lakes alone, more so than have occurred in the Bermuda Triangle. So
Ooh,
that kind
man,
of
I feel like we
also
should talk about that sometime.
just kind of makes it, yeah. And there actually is a Lake Michigan triangle as well. There are
Yeah.
multiple different triangles in the world. I mean, there's the Devil's Triangle out there in what is it, like Maryland or something like that, Massachusetts, something. I don't
Uh,
know.
there's a couple. There's a couple. I don't know which
Yeah,
one is called Devil's Triangle, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
but there's one over Lake Michigan, just west of the area I grew up, that had an airplane back in the 1950s, an airliner
Hmm.
that disappeared without a trace, and people have been looking for it since then, and they've never been able to find it. There's multiple TV shows. I think there was a Josh Gates TV show that actually featured
Oh,
this airliner at one point in time. People found luggage, but they have never found the plane.
hmm,
So yeah, I think that's kind of interesting.
hmm.
But I kind of think that's going to be our show for the day, because
All right.
we've been going on for quite some time, about an hour, I think,
Yeah.
which is fine. I had fun,
Oh yeah,
and
and I'm surprised at the range of topics we covered here. And we
yeah,
didn't even
this is
have to
just our first episode.
I know, and we didn't even have to like fill up a bunch of time with the Flight 19 thing. I feel like that's a little done to death, honestly.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the Bermuda Triangle, but I didn't want to talk about things that people had already known.
Hmm.
So it's like, why bother with a topic that people can talk about all
Hmm.
the time? Let's talk about things like, we don't know what's going on there.
Hmm.
And that's I think going to be the premise of this show going on into the future, is that we kind of have a basic idea of something,
Hmm.
and we've been force fed certain shit, but we've never really actually thought about it.
We've been given the answers that someone else figured out that they would accept, but
Yeah,
we don't know if we want to accept those yet.
exactly. So I don't know. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Mike. And I think with that explanation, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna wrap this one up, and we're gonna get on out of here. And if you've joined us for this, I appreciate it, because I wouldn't. But hey, you're here, and I hope you had a good time, because we did, and we got to talk about some cool shit, and the next one's gonna be even better.
Do
We
you
got
have
nowhere to
like
go.
a little teaser for the topic for next one?
I don't know. I don't actually, because I haven't thought about it. But you know what, Mike? That's a good idea. What should we talk about on the next one?
Hmm.
Like, it can be anything.
We could stick with
Anything.
the triangle theme and talk about like the Devil's Triangle or the Bridgewater Triangle or something like that. We could go UFO or USO. Talk about Atlantis. I could talk about Atlantis for like 6 hours straight, man.
Yeah, we don't
Uh,
want to lose that many listeners yet. I mean, we've only just
fair enough.
started.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't
Um,
know. I can't really give a teaser, but it's something that me and Mike will know before we do it. So, stay tuned. We got some good things coming here in the future, and it's going to be I don't know, it's going to be our whack-a-mole, wacky, crazy theories on this shit that are just going to be very prevalent during the show. So,
yeah,
but I appreciate my co-host Mike for being here, and I appreciate me for being here.
and I appreciate you, Jack, for being here.
Oh, thanks. And I appreciate all the listeners for being here. So,
I
come back
appreciate
again.
them the most.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for you guys. Oh, yeah, actually, we probably
Actually,
still
yeah,
would.
we kind of would.
Yeah, if nobody ever listens to this, whatever, we'll still do it. Because, it's fun. I like talking about these kind of things, and I like thinking about these kind of things, and I always have, and I always will go back to my playground days, just like you, Mike, and bring up all of this shit that fascinated me so much in my childhood and continues to do so today. And we're going to continue doing this show and just, yeah, having a good time with it. So,
Yeah.
once again, thanks for listening. If you haven't, go and check us out on Instagram. That's the only place we are, and probably the only place we're going to be. But we're on Instagram at Bermuda Boys Podcast. So go check that out. And if you want to follow us, don't. So, I mean, us personally. I mean, follow the podcast, but don't follow us personally. Yeah, fuck that. Unless Mike wants to be followed, which I don't think he does. And I don't really want to be either. I don't have a whole lot going on there. But yeah, now I'm just rambling. So yeah, hey, good night,
Good
y'all.
night.
I just did a little salute for some reason, like y'all can see me, but whatever. Good night.
Life is hard, and so am I. You'd better give me something so I don't die.